Boom. Okay. Hi, everyone. This is recording. Um, in full disclosure, I'm Jess Pettit. I do not know some of you. Some of you probably think that you know me, and I'm supposed to remember that I know you, but I don't because I am an asshole. But some of you I really don't know. So hi, welcome to me. This is who I am. I made a commitment to NSA probably in 2008 when I was like, fuck this noise, I'm out of here. I hate this place. That instead of quitting, I decided to infiltrate. And part of infiltrating is that I am available to answer questions or help things with the very limited skill set that I have that makes me basically an unemployable feral muskrat. So if I haven't offended you yet, I still have 57 minutes. So buckle up. So somebody posted in Power Women, I think it was Danielle, posted in Power Women, can somebody help with interactive activity kind of things? And I was like, yeah, sure, totally happy to help. Whatever I can do to help, sure, happy to help. I started in education 175,000 years ago, and I am constantly learning that things that I assume everybody knows, there are people who do not know. So weird. Okay. There are people who are on this call because I am wearing the kind of glasses, if I go like this, I can see individual faces and names. But there are people on this, like Patty, like you should not be in here. You should be teaching this class. Y'all have skills for miles, and some of y'all absolutely don't. So what I'm going to try and do when we're talking about interaction, a couple of y'all talked to me in between. I didn't know that I was going to do a webinar on this, and we have like roughly an hour. So number one, I am not going to get to each individual person. I'm not doing hot seats. I'm not doing any of that stuff because we're all speakers. And even though y'all have been very quiet, that could take up the whole hour. Some people wanted interactive stuff. Some people wanted in-person stuff. I'm going to use the word better, creative, more intuitive in person than I am online. I am not a tech person. I don't have one of those switcher, whatever cam. I bought a $5 camera when COVID hit. That's this camera. I have a keyboard. I don't care. And I have a viable business. So you're welcome. In person, I try very hard to do interactive things that are free, cheap, involve zero props. Because if you use props, they don't show up in the mail, or someone is allergic to oranges or something. So I try to use whatever would just naturally occur in the room. And that I made up this stupid PowerPoint deck that I'm about to share with you for two reasons. Number one, I am going to attempt to manage time. That's not going to work, but we're going to try. The other thing is that one of the things that I do that really pisses off a lot of speakers, that's a very long list, so feel free to add in the chat other things I do that piss you off. But I attend as many other people's programs as possible. I don't care what the topic is. It don't matter. It's more fun if it's something I can tolerate for an hour. But that is where I learned most of this from, is that I watched somebody else do it. So there is one example of this organization is called Aorta. And for anyone who does not identify as a pinko leftist social justice person, you're going to hate them. So don't go there. Go find somebody else. But if you happen to identify as a pinko commie leftist, you're going to feel like the most conservative person in this training. So they did a facilitation skills or engagement program that was probably like 4 or 5 sessions long. It was an amazing, immersive immersion experience for this cranky Gen Xer to be surrounded by Gen Z, millennial, way more liberal than me people, but to watch how they used Google Slides for interaction virtually. So I am attempting to start with what they did virtually, and then from there, I'm going to show you two main things that I want you to think about, like in a metaphorical sense, or what I'm referring to as a mix it up sense, because we all have different topics. We all have different number of people in the room. The rooms are shaped differently. They have different kind of tables that are in there. So I'm going to ask for you to think about the program that you are working with, the number of people that you are working with. And I'm basically going to assume that your audience are sticks in the mud who have zero interest in playing, but you have been asked to do something interactive with people who don't want to, because any other audience is going to be a little bit easier than that. So that's the fundamental assumptions I'm making. Sound good? Y'all are so compliant. This is strange. Okay. We waited 8 minutes. More people are still coming, I'm sure. Anyone with the link can be an editor. I am getting ready to share a Google slide deck in the chat. So Rebecca, since you are co-hosty, if more people come in, you have to share this link with them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask everybody to go into this Google link. If you are on a treadmill, don't do it. If you're driving, don't do it. If you're sitting at a desk with your safety gear on and you possibly have more than one screen, this would be an excellent thing to do. If you can't, don't do it. So similar directions are when you encourage people to do interactive stuff. Always be mindful that somebody is doing something that they should not be doing the engagement with. I like to give people the option of not doing things. So as people are loading into the Google Sheets, I want to first say that I think the most important thing about, I'm going to use virtual engagement here, is to allow people to not do it. So we are all over Zoomed. We are all over breakout rooms, whatever. I don't even know how to use the whiteboard or whatever that is even called. I don't know. That's the answers. Y'all are smarter than me. So you do the things that you think are smart. And if you want to tell more people about it, set up a program inside Power Women, do it and record it, because then you're going to be inundated with all the people who are like, I can't come that day. Great. Watch the recording, or you won't. So who cares? But when I use breakout rooms, for example, I set up the breakout rooms and then I stay, and I call this the hotel lobby, because there are people who don't want to go to breakout rooms. So then great, they're here. I gave the breakout rooms the prompt. So then while they are not participating in the breakout room, I am asking them the prompt and we're having a conversation in this space. Maybe they don't know the technology of how to get in a breakout room. Maybe they're scared to join with their boss or their ex or something like that. Maybe they just don't want to. I don't know. Hang out. Then when somebody messages you, there's nobody in the room, you can manually move people around in the breakout rooms. Like, engagement is supposed to be engaging. It's not math. Sometimes it's math, but it's generally not math. But give people a way to not do it if they don't want to. Okay, so in theory, we are all in a Google deck. Notice I am not sharing my screen. Okay, now some of you are like, but I can't see. That's because you didn't join the deck. You can watch the recording. I'll put the link in the thing or the comments or whatever somehow connected to the video. Okay, so inside of, I'm stealing something first. So before we move in, I just want you to notice, you can tell if you're new to Google Slides, which I was relatively new to Google Slides. So there are already some of you with your butts all puckered because you can see the entire deck and there are people moving around. They're in slides. You have no control over this. Welcome to reality. You have no control over this, generally speaking. Relax, focus on your content. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do is we're going to move to slide 2. This is stolen directly from one of the aorta programs on facilitation skills, but it blew my mind on how to do interactive stuff using slides in a virtual way. So this is just one example, okay? So one of the things that we were talking about in their facilitation program, and I 100% cut and paste this slide from their deck into here. There, cite your sources. Is we're talking about different things that we can do. So some people are so new to engagement, you don't even know what I mean by when I say, what do you do that's engaging in your program? I am not a therapist for very obvious personality-based reasons. So this is their question slide, right? So I'm just using it as an example. It already has some thinking examples of things. And I'm about to ask you, what are the different components or ingredients of your engagement in your program? So here's some examples. Notice I've given them the question, I've given them the answer. So then I want you, everyone, to go to slide 3. I'm giving you directions, right? So you should all be, in theory, moving to slide 3. So what I want you to do is find a pink box, and I want you to answer something that you do that is interactive already. I recognize that this is really stupid, but what was fascinating to me while I was watching this, y'all do this while I'm talking. Go find a pink square. So first off, please note, if someone is in the pink square that you were in, go find another one, right? But in real time, I'm getting answers that everyone can see, and everyone attending the training has access to these slides forever. So then you'll be able to see all of these different ideas that people do. And the co-facilitator can actually be a couple of slides ahead, prepping or summarizing what people are saying, while the one facilitator who's leading this particular activity might be paying attention to what's happening on this slide. If you have a co-facilitator, this training did have a co-facilitator, but I just thought it was amazing. Now I have been yakking to you. I have no idea what you're typing. Could people type offensive things? Yes, because people are assholes. Could people type things that are super smart that you're going to read about later? Yes. Could people not play? Yes. But somewhere is an overachieving extrovert. When they see there is an empty pink square, they're just going to add something in, and then all the pink squares are filled in. And then everybody has access to the slide deck. So if you ever want, you can go back and look at this or steal the slides for a future presentation. How engaging is that? Right? So they used the money of this training was worth just watching how they used Google Slides. And I wanted to start with this first in that it's not about the content. It's about engaging and using the resources that you have available. And I feel like it's our job to be upping our own game. Yesterday, I had a medical procedure and was not in good shape. I'm doing better today. So I laid on the couch and I watched the Taylor Swift Eras tour. That is how much pain I was in. I think that's enough said. And somebody posted, as I of course live posted, how the benefits of not having chub rub is a sequin bodysuit. I did not even know that. And somebody else posted, why would you watch that? Ooh, awful. I am not a pop music fan, but I work on a stage and everybody's talking about this person and what she did on stage. It is my job to watch someone use the materials I do so that I can elevate my game. Am I going to be Taylor Swift? I already am. Thank you very much. But am I going to wear sequined bodysuits? Unlikely, very unlikely. But some of them jackets, I have that little fringe multi-layer thing at the end. I already have one. I totally forgot about it. Thank you, COVID purchases. But that's our job, right? So that's my point. Okay. So whatever is on this slide, which I haven't had time to read, are now a whole bunch of ideas. Some of you don't know what they mean. You could Google it, probably. Okay. If you move to slide 4, these are some of the examples that they came up with in the training. So me as a participant and the other participants came up with slide 4 and 5. So now you have 3 pages worth of people's ideas that are different ingredients of programs that could be done virtually or could be done in person. I don't know what some of them mean, but isn't that's your job, is to figure out what that means or how you could morph it into your content or in this particular room. So I just wanted to use this as an example of virtual engagement that I think is actually more engaging than cheeseball speaker virtual engagement. Do y'all know what I mean? You've all been to a bad, I'm sure none of you have ever done any kind of bad engagement. So the bad people, they have done bad stuff. But this is easy, it's clean, it trusts the process, and it's evergreen because you can go back and look at this. So I'm going to take a sip of water and I want to check in and see how y'all are doing, because this is the one kind of example of virtual engagement that really changed how I show up at virtual gigs to be engaging or interactive or solicit stuff from people who often are bored out of their minds or multitasking on 97 screens while on a treadmill. So, this is the danger zone. Would anybody like to say anything? Rebecca, your hand is up.
Yeah, since they're taking away Jamboard, or essentially they've already taken away Jamboard, this is a nice replacement for that. It's not synonymous exactly, but it's a nice replacement.
Great. I don't even know what Jamboard is. I'm so glad that that works. Allison, your hand is up.
I appreciate seeing this. I've been using Padlet, which does very much the same thing. So I think there's different applications out there. You can play with Padlet for free, I think up to maybe 6 or 8, but there's a series of them. What I like about that is you have sort of one main dashboard, and you can go in and see like each of the different each page that you've set up, and they all have their unique URL. So just like this. So it's very similar. I didn't realize that Google was doing this. I've been loving Padlet for interaction. So this is just another way of doing it. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. I also have never heard of Padlet. I want to point out that there's a million things you haven't heard of. Great. What have you heard of? What are you familiar with? And then just make that work, right? Like, I think that this is getting into capitalism, which is a different workshop, but I think that there is a lot of pressure to do all kinds of new fancy things because somebody wants to make money off of you. You can also just chill and do what you're comfortable with. And it's you and your content, not the new whiz bang thing that's fun and exciting. And as a very low, no tech person, the whiz bang thing that you're all excited about, it's going to break, right? The room's going to have shitty internet. The whatever it is that you need. I find it particularly funny when often I am backstage and someone is telling me about, I don't know what any of these words are that I'm about to say, but their Mentimeter pole breakout giz whapper is going to blow them away. And I'm like, great. My keynote will. Right? Like I don't need the decoration, and engagement shouldn't be decoration. Engagement should be purposeful and actually deepen the point that you're making. And if it is not deepening the point, you're doing it because you think you need it. And I think that that is dumb. And that might be a philosophy other people disagree with. And you're welcome to put it in the chat or say it out loud, do whatever you want to do. Now, there's one more virtually thing that I want to do that I think is, or I guess, no, two more things, because I'm actually doing good on time. Did not see that coming. So the first one is, if you know how to change or rename your square, what I want you to do is I want you to rename your square one word, what's the last thing you ate? So if you can, rename your square the last thing that you ate. Sometimes you may need to say the directions if they seem to be a relatively new to Zoom. That doesn't really happen so much anymore. This is a very non-characteristic answer for me. The last thing I ate was a piece of broccoli, which is not normal, but I made soup and one piece didn't fit in the bowl, so I could feed it to a dog. I oddly ate it. Please be shocked. Okay, so what I want you just to notice is that this is kind of an interesting icebreaker, right? So then if you wanted to be engaging, right, then I could very easily say like, Ava, what are your thoughts on this particular thing, right? But then I could say, anyone who ate fruit, I want you to put in the chat what you think about this thing, right? So then orange and banana, they're going to show up in the chat answering a question. Does this make sense? Because it's not about what does Helen think about it. And in some ways, it also removes the power dynamic of what people's jobs are based on how they're answering the question. So that's another very easy one. The last one I'll do that's Zoom based, and then we'll move on to mixing it up. The is in the chat if you have access to your keyboards. What I want you to do is on a scale from 1 to 10, how was Q1? 1 is shitty, 10 was better than you've ever imagined. On a scale from 1 to 10, how was your first quarter of 2024? Just put a number in the chat.
1 was amazing.
1 is shitty, 10 is amazing. This is like ice skating. So by being able to ask a question, I'm able to engage people. Caitlin, specifically for you and probably other people, but you're the one I saw. I was on one that was about burnout, and it said on a scale from 1 to 5, how burnt out are you? Like, that's a really fun question. And technically you could ask that to anybody, you know? Other thing is I do a lot of virtual high fives like this. So then I will ask people, give me a high five, and they either high five the camera, right? Good job, Alana, or they'll put a 5 in the chat, which is a virtual high five. Right. So there you go. There's my whiz bang, super fancy virtual, no clicker, switcher, whatever they're called, needed, but they're just a little outside of the box. I used to do a thing with breakouts. Now that you can pick and choose your own breakouts too, I will use the renames of breakouts as fun things, like coffee, eggs, bacon, and toast. Go to a breakout. Then I will pop into the different breakouts and give them different directions, or the directions initially were like, discuss how we're doing or whatever. It's just a more fun way of doing things. But again, the engagement or the interaction is to deepen the connection, increase networking, or to allow some space and application to whatever it is you're trying to teach. Doesn't matter about the topic. Okay, questions, thoughts, comments before we get to kind of mixing it up. And these are kind of more in person, but you could do it in breakouts if need be. How are we doing out there? Thumbs up. Okay, great. You're welcome to change your names back to your actual name, just in case I need to call on you. Otherwise, maybe more than one person had a banana. Would someone repost the Google link? Just, oh, that's Rebecca, you're in charge. Then that's old, so that might, oh, because Caitlin already did. Scrolling, it's good. Okay, now I'm not going to be able to read all this. We'll just scroll past stuff. Okay, great. Way to go. Next up. So I am now on slide 6. Please notice my PowerPoint design skills. You know what? It works. We're at mix it up. Relax. Okay, so if you move to slide 7, I typically do this in person because, and I'm being really frank because this is generally an all women's group, there is an assumption because I am a woman, I have high energy. I am energetically very dark. I am not a perky cheerleader kind of person. That is some of y'all's cup of tea. That is not some of y'all's cup of tea. But because I'm a woman, I get to do the get to know you networking thing at breakfast. No, you do. What are your thoughts on genocide? That's where I'm at breakfast. So I need something that's a little easier to get to, right? Because we're all drinking shitty $10,000 coffee. So I stole from Twitter when it was still Twitter. There was a thread of the most recognizable songs based on the first couple of notes. So I asked Facebook, is anybody really good at making Spotify playlists? And some of my friends said, why, yes, I am. I was like, great, go to this thread because I don't know how to use Twitter. But all of the songs that are on this thread, I want you to make a Spotify playlist for me. And they did. So the second Spotify playlist, not the first one, I know they look the same, but you jumped ahead. And you know what? Great, you're going to get to another Spotify list. So the second playlist is very, very long. There's a gazillion songs on it, and it's across multiple generations, but it's also across song genre. So there's classical music, there's hard rock, there's country, there's like 50s roller skating kind of sounding music. But all of those songs, according to Twitter, are open to what? I can't get the slides to move beyond 6. Any tips? I have no idea. I don't know. You should be able to move to all of the slides, Ava. Sorry. So I get that playlist. Now, another thing on Spotify is called Music League. Music League is like a very fun thing I do with my friends. And you post music that meets certain themes. So one of the themes was easily recognizable songs. So this is a much shorter playlist, and it is primarily cranky Gen Xers. But depending on what you're looking for, who the audience is, either one of these might be good. The downside of a very long list is there's a lot of songs, so it's very hard. It's not organized, so it's very hard to hit different genres in different decades. A shorter list, at least it's all like Gen X-y things. So what do I do now that you've stolen, hopefully, the playlist? Ava, did you get through? Can you use thumbs up? Your thumbs up. Okay, great. So what I do is in the large room, like this is kind of a first timers. Again, I don't hire me for this because I'm not your perky person in the morning. So I make them bring a speaker or a Bluetooth speaker, and then I sit near the blue speaker with my cell phone, trying not to talk because no one wants to talk to me about the shit I'm thinking about in the morning. And I tell them, I'm going to play a song. You either like this song, you hate this song, or you can't figure out what song it is. So everybody starts in the middle, and then they decide if they like it or they dislike it. So then they're mixing up in the room. And then my job is to play DJ and mix it up by generation, by decade, and by genre as best as I can, because they typically will recognize the songs almost instantly based on the first couple of notes. Are you following me? So then what's amazing is every time I've done this, the hardcore heavy rock music people never ever feel represented. So when I play something that they like, they are like, yeah, they're super stoked. And now they got all their friends. Same thing happens with country music. I'm more of a country music kind of person, and I prefer old country music, the real sexist, awful kind. That's my favorite. So when I play something really, 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 really twangy, those people find each other, right? And then there always ends up being a New Kids on the Block, NSYNC, Backstreet Boy problem that happens. But they have found each other. That is a networking activity that is not, and now we're going to do a networking activity. You can do this outside of music as well if you don't have a lot of mobility or you have a conference with people who have mobility issues. I would not do this activity. Come up with something else. But I think you can also do this on topics, right? Like, what are your thoughts on ice cream? You either love it or you hate it. And then you can duke it out on the side that loves it of what's the best flavor or something like that. Not actually inciting violence. Helpful? For those of you that are like, oh, this is so amazing, just recognize how complicated you are making to do the morning networking thing. I sit in a chair and sip my chai and play DJ while they are doing this. And then the client is like, that's the most amazing networking thing I've ever heard. But I have to do that because I don't have personality to be charming and perky in the morning. So this is what I do. Helpful? Thoughts, comments, questions? This is the interactive part. Courtney loves it.
I'm busy playing music. Sorry.
Oh, great. Yeah, that'll happen. Okay, so kind of similarly, we're going to move to number 8. Now, number 8, I think you can also do this virtually. You just create the groups of strongly agree, agree, disagree, strongly disagree. I was actually going to send y'all through this one, and then I was like, what a nightmare. Like, we're all feral muskrats. We can't even do to just imagine. But if you're in an actual room, you physically label the corners or just point to the corners. I do stronglies diagonal from each other and non-stronglies diagonal from each other, but all the agrees are on one side and all the disagrees are on the other side. Then all you have to do is say anything because people will make an opinion about it. Chef Boyardee, what are your thoughts? Right? Whatever random thing that pops up works. You could do random things. You can also do topic specific things, right? You could make a choice about what it is you're doing. I talk about a topic. We're doing this based on I talk primarily on controversial topics. This is too in your face of how polarized my audience is already going to be. I would never do this with one of my topics. But what I would do, and this is some foreshadowing to metaphors later, but what I would do is pick something like mustard and relish on a Costco hot dog. That is very specific, and people got some thoughts. First off, we got to get to Sam's versus Costco. Then we got to get to the controversy of them getting rid of the hot dog, the Polish hot dog, which I am not over. Now we got Chicago's going to show up, right, with their very wrong hot dog topics. I am originally from Texas. I left off chili to try to be inclusive, and onions do not belong anywhere on anything. So I have very strong opinions about this. So I pick things that shouldn't be controversial, that people will get super heated about, but then I can use that as a metaphor later on for like, don't get me started on sauerkraut, because somebody in the audience went flipped out about sauerkraut on hot dogs and then like started chanting their sauerkraut pride or whatever. But I can use that as a metaphor when I'm talking about how groups form, how instantaneously you become a them or an us based on these very I can use this as a metaphor without the prompt being something that is controversial. Are you following how I'm using it as a metaphor? Okay. Sauerkraut pride is a Polish gang. I know, it's great. I actually really like sauerkraut, just not on a hot dog. Okay, so this is four corners. If you're doing this in person, you need space in the four corners. If the room is full of round tables, usually this kind of exists already, because they almost always remove the corner round tables so that the serving staff can make it around the corner and have a place to put their trays. If it's rows, there likely isn't as much room in the corners. So then if you have the ability to do this, I would remove one of the half rows of straight tables. So then everybody's kind of on this side of the room, and then you make the four corners on the open side of the room. Are you following? Do you have access to the room? No. Great, you can't do this unless it's magically set up right. What if you agreed in advance, this is how it's going to be set up, and you show up and then it's not set up right? Oh my God, what do I do? Are you panicking over an engagement interactive activity not being able to happen? I would take a pill. Like, do something else then. Do not freak out that at 5 a.m. your room is not set up perfectly to do your stupid engagement activity. Be a professional and figure something else out. We'll get there. Questions, thoughts, comments? Anybody filing a report against me yet? How much time do I have? Ooh, less than 30 minutes. Okay. So then we're going to move on to table number 9. Okay, so 475,000 years ago, you might not believe this, but I taught high school. That did not work out well. No one is surprised by this. Not because of the students, they were great. It's their stupid parents, which is why I don't have children. Well, one of a bazillion life-crafted family planning choices. But one thing I took away from my very high, very drunk college days is this thing called jigsaw puzzle. This is possibly the thing that I do that mesmerizes my clients more than anything. And I cannot believe it is the only thing I remember from college, other than things I should not be remembering from college. Thank God the internet did not exist in the 1900s. So we're going to have 7 groups of people. Maybe they are sitting at round tables. Don't know. The last time I did this, it was a community group who were bitching and complaining about, doesn't even matter because we all live in communities. They're bitching about something. So there's a loud group of people who all wanted to be heard and bitch and complain about whatever they're bitching and complaining about. This is fantastic. Doesn't have to be negative. It's just, this is when I use jigsaw the most. Wait, especially if like the planner is really nervous because they're all very angry and they all want to be heard. And what do we do? Jigsaw. That's what you do. Calm down. I got this. So they are divided into groups. If you are not able to see colors, this might be a little more challenging and you're just going to have to trust me. So we have 7 groups. There are 7 people in each group. Now, some of you just panicked. What if they're not 7 groups? You're going to have to do math. Sorry. So what you're going to do is you're going to divide them into groups. You may notice, even when you say divide into groups of 7, that there is a group of 9 because someone brought their security person with them and they don't care. Great. Now you know that there is a group of 9. What is the largest group? If it's too big away from what you said, tell them to move groups. So maybe you have groups of 7-ish. So 7 is the largest number. The rest of them really are in the 5s or 6. Does not matter. You just need the largest number. In this case, this is utopia, where everybody followed directions. So there's 7 groups of 7 humans. Isn't that amazing? Great. So then what you're going to do is you're going to give this group a prompt. In these groups, somebody does not care what the prompt is, and they are going to talk about whatever the hell it is that they want to talk about. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Some groups are going to follow the prompt. Some groups, somebody is going to be, let's say, Katie. Let's say you're in one of these groups. You're going to facilitate the group and make sure that everybody has time. Everybody goes around and they get to say their name and their pronouns and what they're doing and what their views are on that particular prompt. Okay, thank you very much. We're done, Lisa. You need to be quiet now. We need to move to the next person, right? Somebody is going to be in some of these groups that's doing that. Other people, absolutely AWOL. And then you have no control over it. Doesn't matter. Relax. You're going to give them this prompt. Now, the reason why this is called Jigsaw is that if you move to, we're on slide 9. Oh, y'all are mostly playing along. Okay, good job. That's the fun thing as a facilitator is I can see where people are too. So then I need to remind people we're about to move to slide 10. Then you move to slide 10. You ask people in the groups to number off. And then you have all of the ones get together. All of the 2s get together. Allison, you're nodding your head. This is not rocket science, right? Like it's so easy. But then now that you have 7 groups with 1 representative from each group, but what if the numbers didn't match? Great. Then there's going to be more than 1 representative from the group that's a little bit larger or a little bit less, but it's close enough. And they're not going to follow your directions anyway. So generally you'll end up with this. This is utopia. So you have 7 groups with 1 person from each group in utopia land. So then you start off with, what did you just hear? Like, what are the themes that you just heard? If you have an activity where people need to come up with feedback or ideas, y'all all know that this like power drain at the end of a training where they have to report back out what their ideas are. And it's exhausting because 3 tables say exactly the same ideas. So what we're doing is we're peer vetting what was talked about. So then a representative from every group is going to share everything that just happened in the first group. Make sense? When they were 1 of 7, then all the 1s get together and all the 3s get together. Well, 1 of the 1s and 1 of the 3s were in the same group. So it is possible that the same information is going to be shared all around all the different groups. So then now they're going to be able to actually figure out what is the most important thing or what are the themes that happened in the previous conversation. The previous conversation is the one that is most likely to be AWOL, because you got angry people who want to talk about whatever it is, or opinionated people, right? So you put them back into their groups. Now we're moving back to group 9 or slide 9. Then you have them go back to their original groups and then share what they thought was the most important that came from the other tables. Then what do you think is the most important idea? So you just went from like AWOL ideas, if you just open it up from a Q&A, to like listening to what was said in each of the groups, to returning to what do you think was the most important thing that was shared from all the different groups. And now you can say, okay, what stuck? And then one group will go, group 5 says the thing that stuck. And then you'll be like, great, other 6 groups, did one other thing pop out to you that wasn't that one? But everyone in the room feels really heard because they had a chance to get out off their chest, they had a chance for it to be vetted, and they had a chance to return and like feel validated by that vetting process. Notice again, the point of it isn't the content, because your content is what's driving the time you're together. This is just a way of interacting or mixing up the cantankerous people to feel heard. The people who feel silenced, it gives them a chance to talk when they're not in a room with the cantankerous or in a group with the cantankerous person. And then you come back together with those kind of conclusions. Thoughts, comments? Where on 9 or 10, they kind of go together slide-wise. Pork barbecue. I'm jealous and sad that that is the last thing that you ate because I do not have any of that. Questions, comments, thoughts? Welcome to the fire hose and the polka dots. I feel like I should buy a lotto ticket that there are however many, there are 30 of you and you are silent. Most of you are muted, so that kind of tracks. But though you don't have to be muted, you can unmute if you'd like to say something. But you're good, is what I'm hearing. And by hearing, I mean not hearing. All right. What are some other suggestions to ask people to consider that would bring them to four corners? So four corners is just, do you agree or disagree with something? And then do you strongly agree or strongly disagree with that something? So it can be any prompt. Food, music, pop culture, slip-on shoes. How do you feel about Velcro? Right? Like you can come up with anything. I suggest doing it with things that are fun or not related to your content, but you can also put some things in that are related to your content. So Kathy, I'm going to pretend that I am you for a second. So let's say that Kathy is at a author's conference and is doing a breakout on sticking points of getting your book done. Sound good? Great. So you could do a thing in the chat if it's virtual, right? Is that I'm thinking of Ali Peltier of big chunk or little chunk writing, right? Like that might be a question. Which are you, little or big? So that might show up in the chat. But let's say for Kathy in person to do a prompt. Do you agree or disagree, and then strongly agree or disagree that you need 6 undistracted hours to write? And there are people, yes, that strongly agree. That is what I need. But then the other people might be little chunk writers, right? So then people will move, and then Kathy can actually use content about people who write for 15 minutes every day versus people like me who write 200,000 words in a weekend because I'm a insane monster, right? But now I know who my other insane monsters are, right? Okay, so great. If you are, what are your thoughts on self-publishing? Do you agree with it? You disagree with it? And do you strongly or agree or strongly disagree? Like that's like a content-based question that you would get to people to divide up. If you were doing it virtually and you had breakouts as strongly agree, strongly disagree, agree, or disagree, I think this would be a nightmare, but let's pretend you have a lot of time. So then you could put people in those rooms, but maybe Kathy plants someone in each of those rooms to talk about the benefits of self-publishing and the cons of self-publishing, regardless of where they answer. So then they're facilitated groups, but now you know the people who are in this group agree or disagree strongly or strongly with that particular topic. This is very hard to talk about on a meta level. Rebecca.
So I'd like to hear a little bit more about why you say it doesn't necessarily have to be relevant to your content, because I am one of those who not only get antsy when there's activities that are just seemingly random that don't have to do with the content, but I actually get angry and I will leave a room if it's just apparently random, stupid shit. So
Yeah.
tell me why you think it's okay to have just things that aren't related to content.
Sure. So first off, Rebecca, I feel comfortable because I know you, right? So like, if you were in my audience, I would be far less likely to do it. Or before the program shows up, I would walk over to you and be like, Rebecca, I'm going to need you to be patient with me for the first 10 minutes. Can you just trust the process?
Okay.
Right? Because I know this about you, right? Like I did a program once where I cited someone and you were like, that guy's an asshole. Like, great. And he happened to write a good book. So I know this about you. And there are people who aren't going to like it. So then you're going to have to set it up. So then maybe I would say, like, I mean, the people who are coming to my thing know I talk about diversity. They know I use humor, and they know I talk about current events because they came to my session, right? They're not coming to me for accounting tips. No one should come to me for accounting tips. So I might say, like, I know we're going to laugh a little bit today, but you also know we're going to talk about some controversies. So let's ease into that. So I need everyone in the room just to trust me for a little bit. Okay. So if I were to do a linear scale and say like frozen Snickers versus room temperature Twix. What say you? Who cares? But I'm teaching them that they're going to be making some decisions and that all of those decisions are welcome. Now, for the record, frozen Snickers is the right answer, but it's not, I'm not creating a space in the room where you have to say the right answer. That's why it doesn't matter. But now we're getting into kind of metaphor. So that is coming. We're still doing good on time. But there will be people who don't like doing silly games. And I'm going to throw out that as a woman, you are going to be perceived as doing a silly game, even if it's not a silly game, because I don't know if you're aware of this, sexism is real. So we have to prove that we know something. And so if we're trying to prove that we know something, we start off with a game that involves Smurfette, we just shot ourselves in the foot. So it's also the timing of it. I rarely start with an interactive thing. Also, remember my icebreaker question, what are your thoughts on genocide? But if I can start with a trust of my approach, then we can get to an interactive thing. I think that might help. And I might reorder it based on what I'm feeling in the room. Who is the person who spoke before me? The person before me did a bunch of cheeseball things and I watched people in the room go, then I am not going to do that. I am also not going to throw them under the bus. And what I might do is when I do something, oh, I just said doo-doo. When I do something that is interactive, I might say, I would like to call out that you're being more patient with me than you were with the previous speaker who was trying to get you engaged. Just notice that. But my character on stage, which, spoiler alert, is the character that I live in my life, that is not a different person, I can get away with that because I'm like a caustic asshole that makes people laugh. So you have to figure out what your font is and how you would handle those things. Do not copy someone else. I have known Patty for 175,000 years. We both come out of education. We could do exactly the same activity, even with the same script. And it's going to engage a different part of a different person because we have different styles. That's called differentiation. Like that's good. So figure out what your font is. Okay, are we ready? How are we doing? 10 minutes. Oh my God, we haven't even gotten a metaphor yet. Okay. Slide 12, more dots. Then we'll get to metaphor. Oh, we don't have time for the interactive bits. So let me do this. See, I was going to do an interactive, but didn't work. Okay, so slide 12. The other thing that I want you to do, and this is a good transition to metaphor as well, is that when you are in a physical space, when the go-to is a parent chair, everybody can see a parent chair coming. That's why they sit next to their friend in case they have to do a parent chair. So don't do a parent chair because they're expecting it, right? Unless you need to do a parent chair, like divide up in a pair and then have a conversation. So do a threesome. They're not expecting that. Well, you just have your safety blanket and one other person, but the safety blanket might have gotten snagged by the other group as their safety person. You just divided up a group of people because they are likely to have a third person that isn't the person they were sitting with. Use threes. 1. 2, there are people sitting behind them. Now, some of you are last row people. Don't tell Marilyn Sherman. So if you are a last row person, then you get to go left or right. Right? There are people sitting in front of you. Don't tell Marilyn Sherman. Then you get to be left and right. But everybody else in the room can go to somebody behind them. My personal favorite is when you're in the auditorium seats where the chairs are glued to the floor and there's no tables, is I ask people, form a group of 5 as a bubble. I want you to think about a circle. So where are you in the circle? And I want you to think to the left of you, behind you, to the right of you, and in front of you, and make a circle. Some of you are going to have to use your spines. This program is sponsored by a chiropractor. Turn around. But they're less likely to have any idea who is sitting behind them. And spoiler alert, they just met a new person, right? So that's what the arrows mean. So you can go to the left, you can go to the right, whether they're in stick tables, not in tables, or in round tables. But don't forget that you can also go behind you or in front of you. Now, when we get to metaphor, this is my favorite thing to do that is a metaphor that can be used for a bazillion things. And it also can use the passing behind you. So a common denominator in most of the rooms that have tables that we speak in is a pen and a notepad. Can we agree with that very bold claim that I'm making? Now, what if you walk in and they don't have pens and papers? Well, you could harass the hotel staff and get pens and papers everywhere, or you could come up with something else. You could bring your own paper. I don't like bringing my own paper because it's shit I gotta schlep around, but I could bring my own paper. So one of the people that posted in Power Women that led to this, because y'all were all like, I want to go. I'm like, what? Fine, I picked a time, but I can't do that time. Well, I guess you're gonna have to watch the recording. Relax. One of the things that I recommended in her world is her audience. Don't want to mess this up. First off, I think it was dentists, but it's franchise dentists who likely didn't hire their own staff members, or they didn't hire their management or something like that. Something's out of their control, but they have like a top-down program that they have to implement, and she's coming in to talk about change. Now, change is an excellent metaphor, but influence also works here, right? Lack of control, letting go, trusting the process. All of those things probably are in most of our keynotes somewhere. So that's what I mean by metaphor. You can do the same activity, but your content is driving the meaning coming out of the activity. So if you are doing metaphor on slide 14, this is where we're starting. So I might say, I want you to grab the notepad sitting at your table. And I'm making this up. I want you to define happiness. And by define happiness, I want you to draw a picture. Now, that training that I did, we all had a naked slide, an empty slide. And so we were allowed to draw on Google Slides. We had our own slide and we could use our own shapes or whatever. So we were going to draw whatever the prompt was. So happiness in this case. So don't let that person in, Rebecca. That's my next call that starts in 5 minutes. Okay, that is a hot wire guy right there. He would be like, what is going on? Anyway, focus. So I want you to draw happiness. So perhaps I get my pad of paper and I start drawing my home, right? Like, oh, isn't that cute? Okay, so I start drawing my home. This is the image of the thing that is in my mind that I am going to draw, right? Oh, I thought I deleted these slides. Delete. Okay, so this might be what I'm picturing on slide 14, but I don't get to finish because you as the facilitator are going to interrupt them. Okay, so they're drawing whatever their happiness is. So in this case, maybe slide 15 is what their notepad looks like. Or in this case, it was slides, right? So we had shapes. Just follow me. It's a metaphor. Okay, we're just finished. Oh, you sent that to everyone in the group and not to Brandon. Rebecca, do not engage with him. Just leave him alone because you don't need that. Okay. He's been sanctioned to me. Just leave him in the waiting room. Okay. So, slide 15 might be what looks like on the notepad, right? It's like a half finished something or another. So then what I want you to do as facilitator is directions wise, take your notepad and I want you to pass it 2 people to your left. And then the left person, 1 person back behind you. So your notepad is now 3 people away. Everyone in the audience is freaking out because they didn't get to finish drawing happiness. And now happiness is like gone over there until they get a new notepad. Then suddenly they don't give a shit about their own happiness. They are worried about what is this mess? What is this? What is happening? So then they get somebody else's notepad and then you ask them either a different prompt or to continue it on, whatever. You get to do whatever you want to. So then I drew slide 16. Okay, so then happiness, let's keep with the same prompt. A present, right? So then I have now finished drawing the thing that is a present. With the notepad that's in front of me, you can pass it again. You don't necessarily have to give it back to the other person. Some people like closure. I think that's complicated because people didn't follow directions in the passing. So then somebody's like, I have the wrong, it's a time suck. just keep the notepad. So then you are able to have a conversation, again, metaphorically, about the prompt was about happiness. Isn't it important to know everyone's definition of happiness? And didn't it bring you some sense of happiness to be able to take the tools that already existed and make yourself happiness out of the tools that existed? You can compare what it felt like when you felt pressure around the first picture, but then you get one that's already started and you can make it better. Do you see how this is a metaphor for whatever it is that you're going to talk about? And it's a free notepad and a pen that's probably sitting in the room. So I bring that because my parting words for you are the greatest movie of all time. And that is, you get points. You can put it in the chat because we're doing interactive. If you can guess which movie this is, I'm a cranky Gen Xer. That narrowed it down to a couple thousand movies. You didn't tell me that you have a flame retardant cape and a wheelbarrow. What movie is that from? You said we couldn't do anything, but you didn't tell me that we had a flame retardant cape and a wheelbarrow. Of course we can do something. Our job is, of course we can do something. That's our job. Can you speak for 12 minutes instead of 60 minutes? I would love to. That sounds amazing. The governor is stuck in traffic. Can you do something for 2 hours? I would love to. And what does the room look like? What's already on the tables? Their name tags often have things in it that might mean something for like what lunch line they're getting in, but really look at what's available on the name tags and see if you can use that information. Like all the red stickers come over here. It is your job. It is my job as a professional speaker. Do not let that person in. It is my job to do what I can with the time that I have been given to make the point that I was hired to make. That is literally at the cost of not having to sit in a cubicle. Make sense? So that is my idea of engagement and interaction. Now I have to go have a disciplinary hearing. If there are other thoughts or comments, please let me know. My email is jess@goodenoughnow.com. And eventually I will get out of my Zoom room. I will buffer or whatever the hell it's called and upload this and then stick it in Power Women. That is a sentence that taken out of context means a lot of different things. I will post it in the Power Women NSA Facebook group underneath the ad that somebody made for me last night while I was very much on drugs. So I will do that to the best of my ability. Yay!
Thank you, Jess. Awesome.
You're welcome.
Thank
Jess, you're
you.
the best.
You
It's
made my
easier
day.
than you think it is.